Welcome to The Little Things, where I show, discuss, and talk about those little things in games most people never notice, but do make a difference. Today's game is Next Car Game by Bugbear, who have also made Flatout 1, Flatout 2, and Flatout Ultimate Carnage. This game is in early development and is available for pre-order now, which comes with its exclusive tech demo. I wanted to show off a few little things I noticed already playing around with this tech demo. And yes, I realize this is just a demo, so everything we see here may not reflect the final product. However, I feel it's important to address the little things, because they do matter and they do make a difference, and I hope to further help the development of Next Car Game by giving a little insight into these little things. Have I said little things enough yet? So, enough stalling, let's get right to it. I'm gonna start off by talking about the little things we can already see in Next Car Game. First of that being 24 cars. Yes, that's right, 24 cars. This is probably the biggest little thing of all, if that makes sense. 24 cars is very important. Why? Well, why not? More cars equals more destruction and carnage, and after all, that's what this game is about. Take a look at Destruction Derby 2, which hosted 20 cars on every track in Derby Bowl. Do you think this game would be the same with only 8 or 12 cars at a time? Hell no. This awesome amount of vehicles is also something that most games today have not accomplished, either due to technical problems or limitations or performance issues, as we only see a max of 8 cars in all the Flatout games, 12 cars max in Grid, another 8 cars only in Dirt 2 and Dirt 3, and the list goes on. It has also just been confirmed that Bugbear will be keeping all 24 cars for single-player offline games, so we can expect nothing less. And as you can see here, the performance hit is surprisingly minor. No surprise there with Bugbear, who have been amazingly efficient with their coding and game design. They did say, however, that this may or may not translate over to the multiplayer, but I have high hopes. If anyone can do it, Bugbear can. Next, I want to talk about physics. Not physics in general, as that is something much bigger that impacts the game significantly, but rather some little features as a result of physics. The first of these being, always relevant physics. What I mean by this is physics that are always enabled, always relevant, no matter where you are in the level. Many games today, in order to be more efficient, will disable the physics of objects as you get farther away, which you can see here as demonstrated in Grid. Once we reach a certain distance, all the objects simply freeze. As we get closer, the objects do not re-enable, causing them to look quite silly until we interact with them again. However, as I've noticed in Next Car Game, this does not seem to be a problem. As we drive further and further away, you can still see all the objects moving and rolling about like they should. This may seem like a pretty minor thing, but hey, this is about little things after all. And personally, this is something I hope stays in the final game. Little things matter. Moving on, and also physics related, we come to physics collision. I just wanted to point this out quickly, that I noticed tires are not actually round. As you can see here, they sorta jump and stutter about as they roll, as if their collision is more octagonal shaped instead of perfectly round. Now, I'm not picky, I realize this is probably this way for performance reasons, but I thought it was big enough, little enough, to point out. Either way. Also, this goes for every physics object, not just the tires. Look at the car parts here. Obviously, the collision of these parts does not represent their visual image, as they should surely topple over. But again, this is to be an arcade game, and I realize performance is a must. It's a little thing. Wow, I need to stop saying that so much. The last thing I want to show related to physics is individual objects. If you notice, every single tire we crash into is actually an individual tire. The only reason I'm bringing this point up is that if we look at the previous Flatout games, many of the tire stacks were not individual tires. There would be these stacks of tires that were simply all one object. I assume this was, again, for performance reasons. However, the fact that Next Car Game has every single object as individual physics objects like this is, well, simply awesome. Especially since the performance seems to be top-notch, and there is little to no frame rate loss when crashing into these hundreds of tires, or these barrels, or these boxes, which break apart into smaller pieces. Speaking of pieces, you may remember from my last video,
The fucking pieces! The pieces!
I'm a little crazy about pieces. And I'll admit, I am absolutely in love with the gratuitous, overkill, insane, and ridiculous amount of debris and pieces that fly from the cars when smashing into anything and everything. This is another big little thing, because I think this is an important visual to have, even if it's unrealistic and probably doesn't make much sense in the real world. In the gaming world though, and in an arcade-style game such as this, it absolutely makes sense, and God is it satisfying to see that much parts and debris fly when you hit something. It adds a bigger sense of destruction and carnage to a game like this, and I think that's something we're all looking for. This next one I discovered by accident. I'm not sure how to title this little thing other than wind, or air, lift? If we take note as our car gets launched out of the cannon sideways, you can see the car start to rotate and lift up a bit, as if the wind from our extreme velocity is lifting us up from underneath the car, like an airplane or a car crash in NASCAR. This is pretty cool that this is already implemented in an early alpha test of the game, and perhaps is foreshadowing some extreme weather-driven racetracks in the final game. Who knows, but I like where this is going. Now let's talk about the weight distribution of the car. This one is pretty simple. The cars feel properly weighted and balanced. I had a big problem with the weight balancing of cars in the previous flat-out games. As you see here, they tend to kind of magically flip back onto their wheels all the time, when clearly they should roll over. It was even more ridiculous in games like Grand Theft Auto 4, where you could actually flip your entire truck back onto its wheels, as if all the weight was on the bottom of the vehicle. But looking at next car game, Bugbear is delivering a nice sense of realism this time, where if you flip over, you're not going to be magically landing on your wheels anymore, and I like that. I'm gonna put 2 in 1 here since they're both relevant to each other. Debris collides and never vanishes. Kind of self-explanatory. All the debris that falls off the cars retain their collision and they never vanish, so you can still hit them on the racetrack the next time you go around. Only the smaller particles with no collision disappear. All the flat-out games included this feature, and it's a nice sense of immersion when racing and derbying to be able to see where all the crashes and carnage took place as you race. The aftermath, I like to call it. Perhaps Bugbear could go a step further and give this debris more weight and mass in order to act as obstacles you will need to avoid to prevent spinning out or flipping your car at high speed. Currently, however, they seem to be quite lightweight and easy to push around. And finally, the last but not least little thing we can see in next car game currently is dynamic collision. The car here actually changes its collision size and scaling depending on the damage and deformation the car takes. It's more noticeable when you're on your roof and then hit the repair key, or you're missing half your car. A lot of games today lack this little feature, and it's just something that's always irked me. Another +1 to Bugbear. Now we're going to move on to little things that are not currently present in next car game, that I think would benefit as a feature for the game overall. Before we do that though, I wanted to take a moment to discuss a little feature that sorta is and sorta isn't in next car game at the moment. Free cam. As you can see here, we have 2 camera modes, locked chase view and free pivot chase view. I should mention that this is already more than most games offer. It's very hard to find a game that gives you total control over your camera and view. Bugbear has already shown there will be many more camera options, as you can see from this hood cam in one of their early gameplay videos. They also stated there will be a cockpit view as well. I wanted to take a moment to talk about this because this is another important little thing. More freedom for the gamer is more fun for everyone. I believe Bugbear should take this free cam a step further and allow us to set up our own camera angles that we can then lock to our vehicle in any which way we desire, not just centered on our car. I'm talking about side cams, roof cams, cameras locked to other vehicles even. Actually being able to move the camera separately from our own vehicle. Let's quickly take a look at a very old game here, NASCAR Racing 4. NASCAR Racing 4 actually allows us to view from other cars, with any camera angle that we desire. We can even view from cameras in the pit lanes, or from the audience in the stands. I've never seen another game that allows this much freedom over the camera and view, and I think next car game would benefit significantly from this little feature. This brings us to our next topic, replays, and more specifically, the functionality of replays. Still looking at NASCAR Racing 4, this also has the most impressive replay system I've ever seen, where not only can we play and pause and fast forward and rewind like most games, We also have a frame-by-frame button and a time bar here allowing us to skip to any part during the replay quickly without having to fast forward through the whole race to get to the part we want. I've never seen that in another game, and Bugbear should definitely adopt this feature. Little things. On top of this, NASCAR Racing 4 also has quite an impressive slow motion feature, where we can specify up to 17 times slow-mo. This also works for fast forwarding and rewinding, as we can set the speed and rate at which we fast forward or rewind. The only thing missing here is a totally free camera to be able to position the camera where we want to get the best angles for replays. These little things definitely matter to bring a more awesome replay experience so we can relive those great crashes in any way and any angle we can imagine. I'm gonna put 2 in 1 again, as they both have to do with the same thing. Tires. Not actually tires. Here's what I mean. As you can clearly see here, almost half of the tire is clipping right through the ground until we reach the point at which it activates, let's say. Obviously, they're not really physical rotating objects that roll the car forward, like in BeamNG Drive, but rather a more efficient method for wheels that most car games use. I know this time I am being picky, but it's still something I notice quite a lot when things like this happen. As a result of this method for wheels, we can see that the tires do not collide with physics objects, and we simply roll right through them. This also means our tires will probably go through other vehicles if we land on them, and not actually collide with them. And also means that if we manage to land on all 4 wheels, the car will not take any damage when it probably should. I must admit, however, that Bugbear has done a great job at making the tires feel much more realistic. As you can see here, when sliding sideways, the grip of the tire catches the ground and promptly flips my car over. Too many games nowadays have this weird, slidey tire physics that just annoy me. This all goes back to what I said previously though, about perhaps making debris become an obstacle when in a high-speed race. Though, without them colliding with the tires of your own car, they won't be much of a problem. I doubt this will change, but it is a little thing that needed pointing out. On the bright side though, this will most likely mean a smoother racing experience, like in Destruction Derby 2. Even here, there were some pretty crazy and unrealistic jumps, but that's what made this game so much fun. And remember, this is one of my all-time favorite racing games, so overall, this may be for the better. Speaking of Destruction Derby 2, let's talk about speed. One of the things that made Destruction Derby 2 so great was its ridiculous speed. The cars felt fast and out of control, and it was awesome. Here in Next Car Game, they don't feel as fast and crazy, but a sense of speed is hard to tell when you're in a plain white playground with nothing real to compare your speed to, so we'll have to wait and see. Also related to speed, I quickly wanted to mention that one of the features from Destruction Derby 2 is being able to drive backwards just as quickly as you can forwards. Obviously this is unrealistic, but in an arcade game, this was fun and creative, especially during derbies where even the AI would drive backwards in order to preserve their engine and not kill their car. This is something to think about, since Bugbear did say they wanted to introduce a tactical-like damage system that Destruction Derby 2 has, so driving in reverse would be the ideal tactical choice. They even do this in real derbies. Alright, so I've nailed down just about every little thing I could possibly find. Before I end this though, we're going to quickly roll through a few missing features in Next Car Game I believe should be present. Sparks. There are none. No sparks whatsoever. There's so much debris though that I almost didn't even notice, but I think the sparks would be the final killer in Destruction when the shit flies, especially if they're like the over-the-top bright glowy sparks we see in Flat Out 2. Gotta love that. Next, driver flying through Windshield. I know this was a trademark thing for the Flat Out games, but I do wish this to come back, including all the hilarious minigames that resulted from it. They were highly addictive and fun, and actually, my friends and I still have a Flat Out 2 night of games and shenanigans every week. We're hoping Next Car Game will be the replacer for Flat Out Night. Though perhaps the sounds of the drivers when banging into things should have a more cartoonish sound to them, instead of sounding like they're making love. I don't know what to call this one, so I'll just show you. The wheel is obviously twisted so much it should not roll properly, yet it is. It'd be nice to see the damage to tires and axles and everything else really affect the car's performance. Again though, arcade game, so maybe not. Also, losing a wheel doesn't seem to have the effect it should. We can still drive at top speed pretty much, and I'm not grinding metal on the ground sending sparks flying. Again, I refer to Destruction Derby 2. I'm not even gonna ask how this car is still driving with no engine and no front wheels. Hard physics. Well, obviously these are not soft body physics, but neither was Grid or NASCAR Racing 4, which had nice soft and smooth impacts like a real car. Metal is quite malleable, and here in Next Car Game, it's quite noticeable when you run into something, there is no leeway, just an immediate bounce back as if you're a super solid object. Skid marks. Right now they're a bit jaggedy with unsmooth transitions, plus they float. What the heck did this guy do here? Also, skid marks appearing in front of our car. I'm sure this will be improved upon in the future, so I'm not really worried about this. And last but not least, we come to my last little thing, which again I have no title for, so I'll just show it. In Flat Out 1, if you were in gear, the car would slowly roll forward, which is actually accurate and realistic since cars do this. This is the only game I've ever seen do this, and I think it was a nice little touch that deserves to come back. Perhaps make it something that only happens when using manual transmission. So there you have it, Next Car Game by Bugbear. What do I think of Next Car Game overall? It's fucking awesome! Hope you enjoyed the video. Find any little things in Next Car Game that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe! Who am I kidding? I hate it when YouTubers do that, and I'm not going to turn into one of those. So do whatever you like. I don't care.